So last week, I was talking with Steve Curry, and he said, Lee, I've got a great idea for you. It's an idea how we can grow Agape even bigger. And I said, well, sure, Steve, tell me that idea. And he says, you need to grow a big beard. You need to let your hair grow big. And you need to wear a white robe. And he said, if you're looking for an example, watch the movie Source Family, which was a documentary in the early 70s about a gentleman by the name of James Baker. And James Baker, I see some nods out there, he started a cult in California. And it was this thing where he had this divine inspiration, and he was sharing this inspiration with everyone. And he was like 45, 46. He was 6'4", a big man with a big masculine face. He looked like life itself. If Grizzly Adams modeled himself after James Baker. This guy was there, and so he's there, and he ended up marrying the 19-year-old virgin. Well, she wasn't a virgin, but she was 19. And she was gorgeous, and he had commandments. He had the rules that he took from all of the religions, all of the philosophies, and he wrote them down. And then he did this for a couple years, and he realized, look at all these women. And he rewrote the commandments so that he could have multiple wives. You ask, why do I say this? Because we started off with the song, listen what the man says. No. Listen to what's being said inside of you. The wisdom you are seeking is not in me, it's not in anyone else. The wisdom is you. And so we've got this idea that knowledge is power. But knowledge, true knowledge, is not what you've been programmed to believe. This is really key. This is something to understand because most of the knowledge ingrained in our minds, put in our minds, we have been programmed. If you take a child and you think about in history, go back to the whole idea of the Aryan race that Adolf Hitler was doing. He was taking children, he was putting them into an environment where everything they were being fed was the propaganda or the idea or the message that they were desiring to have those children with. So let's break that down and bring it back into what do we believe? We believe that there's a subconscious, or we believe there's an infinite mind. And we are expressions of that infinite mind. As such, we have that infinite mind within us. A little bit of it's conscious. Most of it is unconscious, right? And from that unconscious mind, we are programmed. And so if we can get, if society can get, if a religion can get, if a political structure can get more programming done, they fill that mind, they're the man, and they're trying to get it so that you behave in the way they want to behave, want you to behave. But you see, that's not why we're here. The illusion is that we should be like other people. The illusion is we need to do this. The illusion is we need to do that. The truth is you are an individual, unique, and whole and perfect expression of life itself. And so let's go on and say, so what goes after this idea? True knowledge is the wisdom that supports our self-determined purpose as defined by our unique, self-recognized values. And you've heard me talk about this in many ways, but I'm going to go at it again because the more I talk, I was out on Thursday night and I spoke in front of a community. A local community has a big thing once a month where they ask people to come in and speak, and I got to speak. And I got to speak for an hour and a half. That was a joy. I mean, there was no one keeping time, and I got to really get into it. And these individuals came because they heard the word that I was going to be talking about conscious living. And they didn't understand what that meant, but they had a curiosity about that. And so I walked them through this idea, self-recognized values. Those are the values that are in you that are unique only to you. No one else has those values. You have them. So if we were in school right now and we were teachers and we wanted our children to really understand, we would try to find out what is unique in them that is desiring to be lit up. What is unique in them that causes them to want to do things, to be things, that excites them, that they lose themselves in time. You know, when you're excited about something, you've lost all identification with time. When you're doing that, it's because you value it. It's when you have to force yourself to do something. It's when you have to be motivated from the outside that it's not a value. Because if you have to be motivated from the outside, it's not what you value. Because if you value it, it's inspired from within. It's a divine calling. It's an infinite presence within you that says, I want to express this and I want to express this now. That's a value. So can you tell that speaking and teaching is a value for me? I'm lost when I get up here talking. So I know that's a value. When I sit down and I start studying this idea of how do you better self-love, how do you consciously live, I get lost. Time flies. When I'm talking about building community, I love doing that. I love to network. I love to be in front of people. I love to bring people's hearts together. I love to challenge people and open their minds. That's another value. And if you follow me around, you'll know I'm a health and fitness nut. Because I'm a health and fitness nut, because I believe that my health and fitness allows me to do my other values. And then there's my number one value, and that's my self-actualization, where I get to be totally, perfectly, and always, to the best of my ability, uniquely Lee. When I'm uniquely Lee, I'm living as the one, and I'm perfect. I'm perfect all the time, but when I'm living uniquely Lee, I recognize that perfection. And that same thing is true for you. So when we get to it, self-recognized values, when we get that, it determines our purpose. It's until we get our values down, we don't know what our purpose is. To have a purpose and not know your values, that's wrong. That means someone's programmed that into us. And once we've got that, then wisdom is all the information that supports it. Anything other than that, it's not really wisdom to us. It's just fluff. Now, I can remember a time when family was a number one value. And I spent all sorts of time studying what it was to be a father, what it would be to raise children, yada, yada, yada. So that was great wisdom at that time. That value fell away. My sons are grown. I don't have to worry about family anymore. So that's not a top value. I still value family, but it's not a top value. See how things change? If at one point you were married, and now you have a was-band or a was-wife, then being married is no longer a value to you. The marriage is no longer a value. What's a value to you is, how can I better self-love? How can I better be the best me? How can I be in the world, be comfortable with who I am, so then I can attract someone who will appreciate me exactly the way I am, so I can go forth and now create with someone a third identity, which is not me and not her or not him and not whatever, and there'll be this third partnership where I get to do it in joy, and it's about supporting and growing each other. So you can see that true wisdom is the wisdom that applies, that serves our purpose, that is fed by what do we value. Okay? And next, I want to go to this idea, true genius. True genius is the ability to discern what information allows us to live our self-chosen, purpose-filled life. See, genius is not about how much information you get. Genius is about, how do I discern when I'm looking at things? Is this information, that information which will serve my purpose, that has a value to me? If it doesn't have a value to me, it's useless information. We've been taught that we've got to have this information. We've got to keep up with all the politics. No, we don't. That's buying into what the man says. We've got to have dogma in our religion. No, that's buying into what the man says. You've got to be a father this way. No, that's buying to what the man says. I'm trying to teach you how to get off the grid. Do you know what the grid means here? The grid means a consciousness that wants you to be like everybody else. I want you to be unique. I want you to be an individual. I want you to be yourself, because it's only when you're yourself that you can love yourself. When you're not being yourself, you cannot love. Does that make sense? Because if you are not authentically yourself, how can that person that's looking at you see into your eyes, see who you are, and accept you? And you see, that's what love is. Love is the idea that you can accept yourself in all your fullness, and then you've taken the time to identify who you are by understanding your values, by understanding what your purpose is, and now you're taking all action in that direction. That is a life of self-love. Anything other than that is not self-loving. So what is one of the single best words that teaches us how to better self-love? That word is no. When that 2-year-old is screaming no, what they're saying is, let me be an individual. When you were a teenager and you yelled no, you were saying I remember I was being programmed to be a great Catholic, an obedient son who lived by the rules of the household. I was programmed to be a student that did the things exactly as Sacred Heart wanted me to do. I was doing everything the way I should, not the way I thought it should be, by what someone deemed it should be. Do you know how many people in the world are on antidepressant drugs? The number is staggering. Do you know why people are on antidepressant drugs? Because they don't love themselves. They haven't let go. They haven't been taught that they're okay as they are. And if they just took a moment and looked within and saw that they were perfect, and then moved in the direction of understanding their values, moved in the direction of creating that self-driven purpose, moved in the direction of discerning what information is valuable and release all other information, they could love. And when I say love, they can accept. You see, acceptance is the key of love. We've made it this mystical idea. We've confused love and sex. Love and sex are mutually exclusive and have nothing to do with each other. Until you find a relationship that you deem as your primary relationship, and at that point you find and make an agreement with your partner about how you will fit in the physical creative process that we call sex. What you finally begin to understand is that the energy of creation that is present in sex is also the same energy that is experienced when we're creating our life purpose. When you study Napoleon Hill in his book, Think and Grow Rich, he brings that in. It's about sexual energy is the creative energy, and it's hard to separate them. And this is where people in leadership can get confused. They think because they're creative, they've got to create sexually. No, you take that energy, you use it appropriately with what your agreements are with your partner, but then you take that creative energy and you channel it into your life purpose. And when you've channeled that energy into your life purpose, you're lost in this magnificent field of creativity where it's your life purpose just soaring in you and you can't wait to do more. You see, I can't wait to get up at 4:35 in the morning and meditate. I can't wait to take my dog for a walk because I do affirmations, because I'm creating my mental equivalent inside my mind. I love the idea that I am free, and the way I am free is I'm taking responsibility for my life, and I'm choosing what goes in my mind. Now, I have people around me, my wife, my son, and some prayer partners, who are always challenging me when I step outside of that. So I want to let you know I step outside of that. Sometimes I just get a hair in my bonnet. I don't have a bonnet. But I get a hair about something and I'll go off because I have been pre-programmed and I haven't rid myself of all those programs. You know, if you notice on a computer, there's all these programs running behind the scene, but you only see the one that you've got called up on the screen. That's your subconscious mind there. If you've got all these programs running behind the scene that you don't even know, and they're unconscious, and then you have a reaction, you say, where did that reaction come from? Oh, that's one of those hidden programs in my subconscious mind. I'm always amazed that when I feel a funk, if I stop for a moment, I'll understand it's one of those programs. If I just take a moment and I question, I'll find that it's one of those programs. And then once I understand that, I can deal with it. But you see, if we don't know that that program's there, what do we feel? Helpless. We feel anger. We feel despair. We don't know what to do. We're miserable. And so we turn to something on the outside to try to feel something on the inside that can never work. That's why we teach meditation, because meditation quiets the mind. Affirmations program the mind. Gratitude programs the mind. What we call spiritual mind treatment builds characteristics of the mind. You see, all we are ever doing is slowing the mind down in meditation, and with every other practice, we're building new beliefs. That's all we're ever doing. This is spirituality at its simplest. You don't ever need to know more. You quiet the mind from the nonsense it's being focused on, and over here, you build new beliefs that serve your top qualities, your top values, and your life purpose. That's what we should be focusing on. And as a community, we come together for one reason and one reason only: to support each other's uniqueness. Not to get you to be able to think like me, or to get you to think like a practitioner, or think like anyone else. Not to get you to do your prayer work in any specific way. Not to meditate in a specific way. All we're doing is teaching techniques, and you choose which ones. There is no dogma at Agape. The dogma is simply this: what does your heart want to experience and express through you? What does your heart want to experience and express through you toward yourself? What does your heart want to experience and express through you to others? And here's the key: you can't separate those two. You can't have one and not the other. They're totally linked. Without self-love, there is no love of others. And that goes against everything I was taught. I was taught to love myself was narcissistic. Loving yourself and believing no one else has value, that's narcissistic. Loving yourself and realizing everyone else has as much value, that's pure love. So I invite you today to simply take these thoughts into your mind, and today reflect for 5 minutes and ask the question: how can I better accept myself? How can I break away from the grid? And how can I create my own perfect mental atmosphere and environment where I thrive, where I become more aware, where I can love myself more full, and more importantly, I can take that self-love and love you and everyone else that comes into my life. Let's pray. I want to thank you for joining us today. I am so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask you to go to our website. Once there, click on the Contribute button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to the world. I would also ask you to please share this message with anyone you feel might benefit. Again, I want to thank you for joining me and the Agape community as together we bring joy to life.